Peace, God. How do you see today's mathematics?
Peace. Well, first of all, my name is Magnificent, Infinite, Divine, Born, Allah, God and Light, Magnificent. And today's mathematics is, well, I just see it like, I'm magnificent, and I'm also divine.
Huh?
What to say about life? You gotta get together. Tell yourself stories that violate every law of the universe. Just to get through the goddamn day. Certain linguistic anthropologists think that religion is a language virus that rewrites pathways in the brain, dulls critical thinking.
Change. We have to change our mind about ourselves.
In what way?
A knowledge of self.
This world is a failure.
You are a stranger to yourself.
And the place you wear is actual.
Our own mind has to be changed. We have to change our mind about ourselves.
In what way?
A knowledge of self.
And be queens and kings like the centuries past.
Knowledge, wisdom, understanding is the key to wealth.
Search for the knowledge, use science and math.
Knowledge, wisdom, understanding is the key to wealth.
And be queens and kings like the centuries past.
Knowledge, wisdom, understanding is the key to wealth.
Our own mind has to be changed. We have to change our mind about ourselves.
In what way?
A knowledge of self. Our own mind has to be changed. We have to change our mind about ourselves.
In what way?
A knowledge of self.
This world is a failure.
You are a stranger to yourself.
Peace. Welcome to the Knowledge of Self radio show. My name is Dietary.
Peace, to rule Allah. Peace, Jaka Nata Allah.
And we would like to welcome you to another broadcast of the Knowledge of Self radio show on this Equality Day in a month that we refer to as Allah, Power, Rule. And we're welcome, really happy to be back with you. Of course, as always, it's an honor to be here. Today's show, as always, is sponsored by Sage Studios and Global Position Solutions. You can contact Sage Studios. They're located in the beautiful city of Inglewood, California, at 1321 North La Brea Avenue. So the goal of today's show, and I think to quote Master Bruce Lee, we're not trying to hurt any camera angles, but this is a show that we felt was really important to broadcast. The goal is to show that there is 5, 10, and 85 in all things, including the 5% nation, and how the religious mindset is detrimental to the nation. We're going to hit you with a couple of quotes today. Let's begin with the first quote, which is by Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi said, "God has no religion." So, of course, as always, we're going to go into the current events for today. And I'd like to give it over to the God Shaquille. Peace, brother.
Indeed, peace. So, wanted to hit you guys with this current event that comes from the Daily Caller. And it's from an event that happened in Arizona, in Tuscany, in Tucson, pardon me. And what happened was these ladies were leaving their university, trying to get back to the car. Police had, in full riot gear, for whatever reason, shown up to this event. Right. And this lady, again, was trying to just get back to her car. The police, out of nowhere, in his riot gear, like, hip checks her, or shoulder checks her. She flies over a pole, face down on the floor, and there was kind of nothing was said about it. You know, someone picked her up, and actually that was part of some of the events that took place that actually started a riot, which they were there to prevent from happening.
Mm.
That alone, you know, is interesting in its own self. You know, the police show up to an event in riot gear. That already kind of sets the tension. You know, I mean, to a certain kind of, you're used to seeing police officers show up to make sure that, you know,
security guards.
Right, there's no devil's shit going on. Right, okay,
Right.
cool. But when they show up in riot gear, you know, that's a whole different persona, you know what I mean, of what the police look like in itself. And then, you know, I heard the report says they were showing, shooting pepper spray canisters off into random parts of the crowd who was trying to incite people. And then this event, I think, was one of the culminating events that ultimately kind of set it off, and then they went to the riot. After that, this officer received a bunch of anonymous threats, I guess, on his life. And so they repositioned him and I guess attempt to save him. And they said they're looking into the people, or, you know, try to figure out who made these threats on this guy's life.
Bizarre.
Right, now, my thing is, you know, I was thinking, man, there was a time in American history, so that's not too long ago, right, to where if an event like that would have happened, the cop would have been beaten down. You know what I mean? It depends on how crazy things got, right? There were times where cops did things, or the local enforcement of that area did something that wasn't right and exact. The people did what was right and exact and got punishment, you know, give that guy some justice. Yeah, and then the other police wouldn't do anything because they knew that the whole town was unified and would fight together for what was right. And it seems like in this day and age, not that I'm saying that people should go, you know, kill cops or, you know, anything like that, but I'm saying the togetherness of the people back in that time, right? Like, okay, you're not gonna do this in our town and treat us a certain kind of way. It's kind of lost, right? Everyone's kind of, well, yeah, that's messed up, but that was that girl. That wasn't my daughter. You know.
So that ties in really well with, you know, the math of today in reference to equality. You know, where equality is care and concern for people other than yourself. You know, so I think that's a really good example, you know, of the lack of equality and how inequality is so rampant in today's world. Yeah, definitely. I'd like to pass it over to the God Jeru for another current event.
Peace, brother. Peace. So this one comes from Scientific American, and the headline is Giant Virus Resurrected from 30,000-year-old Ice. The discovery of the largest virus yet still infectious hints at the viral diversity of trapped permafrost. So, for me, why would any scientist want to resurrect a virus that's extinct, right? You know, unless they're going to use it, like we always say, for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I guess I could understand at some point the, you know, you want to know what was happening back then, right? So maybe examining that virus will help you understand kind of more the environment, right? The viruses are kind of unique to the environment, right? So to that extent, I could see it being used as a good thing, right? But like you said, and we always say on the show, you know what I mean? There's always some dude behind that dude, like, yeah, that's awesome. Why don't you see if you can make it do this? Oh, it's active? That's great. I'll take that.
Right.
And you're fired. And also you're under, you know, what do they put people on? You're not allowed to say anything and you can't talk.
Showboarded.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll basically take you out.
Right. I think I would have to agree with you. Like the scientists in all of us would want to discover and explore these things a little bit further. However, you know, just several years ago, they pulled a mammoth elephant out of Siberia. And, you know, I remember the news events that would follow that, where they were saying that they were actually going to try to use that DNA to produce a mammoth elephant. You know,
Jurassic Park style, right?
Right. And the first thing that came to my mind was, if you were to reproduce something like that, it's going to be very harmful in the ecosystem. So why would you want to do something like that?
Right. When you think all you hear is about CO2 count, there's too many people on the planet, overpopulation, this, that, and that. How come that doesn't apply when it comes to resurrecting certain animals? Because, like, for example, it says in this article, 2 years ago, Clavery and Herbergel's team, basically the team that did this with the virus, learned that scientists in Russia had resurrected an ancient plant from fruits buried in 30,000-year-old Siberian permafrost. Mm-hmm. So they're resurrecting things on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. So when you start reintroducing things into the environment, it's going to have an effect on it. Right. You know what I mean? So the biggest concern is about CO2. And there's too many people or too much this and that on the planet. You don't think experimenting with these high explosives is going to cause more of an issue?
Man, exactly. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, there's a lot of things you can't predict, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And so, for a board there, I was actually playing this game on PC. My black woman brought me the other half of the expansion half of it, mm-hmm. StarCraft, or video game, that's okay.
StarCraft.
And so, right? But so the other thing is, they resurrect this lady who was infested, and then they're doing the experiment with this alien race called Zerg. Mm-hmm. And they've got it in what's called a controlled environment. And they're having her test to see if she can do different things to manipulate it. And through the course of that, she's like, yo, let me just show you how what you think is a controlled environment can quickly turn into a chaotic situation. Mm-hmm. And then the Zerg end up going crazy and overrunning the base, and they got to run away and retreat. And so, I was thinking, I was like, man, that kind of parallels this situation instead. It's like, yeah, you do want to explore and do different things like that, but also you got to realize when you're playing with high explosives, man, sometimes things blow up.
Right.
That's you know what I mean? And when it gets out of hand, how quickly does that get out of hand? We've all seen movies. And we know how closely movies imitate real life, mm-hmm. or sometimes tell the future, and of a virus getting out in some kind of experimental lab, or one guy gets contaminated, he doesn't know, he hops on a plane, and now everyone on the plane is contaminated, but they didn't know in time, so those people all went to different areas, and now there's this whole national thing, and only one person has the cure.
Right.
We know how to do the whole problem, response, solution.
Right. So I think one of the most important things is really to push our children not only into a righteous teaching, but more importantly to move them in the direction of studying science and math, so that we have good-hearted, good-intentioned people getting involved in these types of things. Because of course, I'm not an expert in viral studies or anything like that. I just know that I'm an expert at avoiding getting viruses. So, with that being said, I think for those of you out there who are, really good parents and you really want to push your children into a field of study, we definitely need more original people in all of the fields related to the sciences and the math. So, with that being said, I wanted to share at least, I have a couple of current events today, which is rare for me, but for the most part,
that New Year thing.
On April the 4th, 1968, we know that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee, and he was actually out there to support the garbage workers in Memphis. But for the most part, with the announcement of Dr. King's assassination, several major cities in the United States erupted in violence and rioting, and the term "burn, baby, burn" was coined during that time because there were so many fires that were set in largely, predominantly black communities. But what's not published, and I mean, here we are several years, decades later, where Allah, the Father, and the 5%ers went out into the streets of what we call Mecca, but it's Harlem, and actually went out into the streets and prevented people from burning down, communities filled with Black people. So I think that's something that many of us need to sort of add into that page of history, because you actually can do research and find articles about how a lot of Father and the 5% went out into the streets and, prevented the rioting. I had the opportunity, which all of us do, to build with Knowledge God briefly about that. And, I asked him, so, what did you guys say to the people to prevent them from doing that? And he said, well, we had to go out. And he mentioned that they went and stood in front of a dry cleaner, and he told him, like, listen, your clothes are in this dry cleaner too. So, I thought that was kind of a comical spin on things, but definitely ask any of the 5%ers who were among the 30 people who went out to the streets that night to prevent the rioting in the streets of Harlem. Yeah, so true indeed. Yeah. So I would like to go ahead and pass it over to Zakil for another current event.
All right. So I didn't want to talk about it, right? But I guess we have to. So everyone's favorite MC, because y'all brought it to the media. Although, his earlier album, Reason Without, that was dope. And even talking about Jay-Z and his recent wearing of the universal flag everywhere he goes. Within the nation, I guess there's different views, right? Some people say, that's cool, let him wear it. You get to bring up the topic and it's a cool icebreaker. Others are like, nah, I got bombed, I've seen others get bombed for not knowing lessons or whatever, and not knowing what the flag represents. Mm-hmm. And, you know what I'm saying? He shouldn't be able to wear it. This article, I think, is interesting because they catch him at a basketball game and they kind of ask him about the flag instead of asking him about Beyonce.
That's a twist.
Yeah. Me personally, I'd be more interested in, you know what I'm saying? But anyway. So, he kind of shrugged his shoulder and, he was like, yeah, I know a little bit about it. But the article, and I think this is one thing that, everyone in the 5% should maybe do a better job doing it. Shouts out to Saladin, who actually was in the article. We need to kind of speak for ourselves more, because they got this Michael Muhammad dude, and the article paints itself in a way that it says, we are a group that's against white people. It actually says white devils. And so, and the majority of what's being quoted as, I guess you would use 5% of rhetoric, is coming from this dude, Michael Muhammad, who I've heard A-Son and a lot of posted. He was like, yo, man, that dude quoted me as 3 different people in the same book. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, wow. Obviously, a lot of the things that he says, you got to probably look at with the finer, with the finer eye. You catch all the things that you're not detecting on the surface, mm-hmm. right? But I don't know how you guys see that. Did you guys hear about that? Jay-Z and Carmelo Anthony actually did rocking the flag.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I'm torn.
I like Carmelo, he's a baller.
Yes, my thing is, obviously he's wearing it for a reason.
Right.
But what is the reason?
Yeah.
And we don't know the reason, you know what I mean? Is there an underlying reason that he's wearing it to bring some kind of attention toward it, in the midst of all the flack he was taking in regards to being a part of all these other different negative groups and things of that nature? Who knows? I don't know. My thing, the biggest thing that I have the issue with is people saying, oh, he raps about this, that, and the third, and I can't believe that he would think he's a 5% because he's rapping about this, that, and the third. But there's a lot of people who are known as 5%ers that are rapping about all types of stuff. You know what I mean? But people don't say anything to them or criticize them. So I'm not sticking up for Jay-Z in any way. It's just that I think everybody should be examined for what they do. But I think the biggest thing with Jay-Z is that there needs to be more learned about it. Because, all these people who are 5%ers, but no one knows where he's getting his teachings from.
Mm-hmm.
Where he got the flag from. There's too much mystery there. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I can't really speak on much of it because I don't know. I'm not directly connected to him or know what he knows or whatever. You know what I mean? So.
Well, I think just like anything that goes on in the entertainment world, because we live in a Law's world. So the world that Jay-Z lives in is a dead world. So in saying that, and of course I'm quoting several brothers that have said that over the years, that you're living in a dead world. So everything that you're doing is pretty much dead. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a publicity stunt. We know that as 5%ers, we know how we earn our flag. But more importantly, it's not about the actual flag on a pin or anything like that. Our flag is man, woman, and child. That's the true flag. So whether or not you ever see me with a button on the lapel of my coat, I'm still a 5%er. What people choose to do with emblems and pictures and things of that nature, it's really I can't control that.
It's a great point.
More importantly, there's a bigger job that all of us and people that you don't see that's being done in the name of the 5%ers. So I just want to make sure that the viewing audience doesn't get confused. We're not out here to be entertainers. We're not Hollywood celebrities. And quite frankly, unlike Jay-Z, none of us, to my knowledge, can call up the president. So,
Obama's definitely not on the on the Galaxy Note 2.
When we see Obama wearing the flag, that'll be really interesting. But I don't necessarily foresee that. But to each his own. That's what I say.
That point was great because especially dealing with today's show, the flag is just a symbol. So I think too many times people get caught up with the symbols when they have a religious type of mindset versus what the symbol is actually supposed to be, manifested as. So he's dealing with sun, moon, and stars, or God, being in control of the universe. So you don't need the flag for that. You just have to be that. And if you're that, that's your flag.
Right, exactly.
So it's just a symbol.
You take a picture of your family.
Right.
That's your flag right there. Right. Color.
Right.
So, I did want to read the quote from Solid D because according to him, they didn't butcher it. It says, Jay-Z is not an active member. No one has vouched for him. And this is, Solid D, the law representative of the group's upstate region, told the Post. It's not always understood. It was always understood that you do not wear help me with that word again, God.
The regalia.
Yeah, there you go. The regalia, if you do not totally subscribe to this life. So, it's kind of the same way. And again, I'm kind of up in the air in it, you know what I mean? In a sense, I'm not going to, if I ever saw the dude, I wouldn't bomb on, you know what I'm saying, and ask him 120 questions and like, nah, you don't know that I'm taking from you. Look, man, like you said, God, you can't necessarily control the acts of another man. At the same time, the same way that I don't go around wearing a police officer uniform because I'm not a police officer. I don't pretend to be, a doctor because I'm not a medical doctor, right? I think that needs to play into it too. So in the same way that, we do represent the flag by man, woman, and child, that also has a certain, it's not just having a family, right? Because anyone can have a baby with a woman and take a picture, and that's not necessarily a universal flag, you know what I mean? That 7 represents God at his highest state, right? That's why it's out above. And so it calls also for the person to live a certain way of life too, right? And not just have a family. But yeah, I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm kind of up in the air about it. If you want somewhere, I'm not tripping because it does spark conversation amongst people that you may not be able to just walk around and be like, yeah, yo, I'm sitting right? You be like, yo, you know what I'm saying? You listen to Jay-Z? Oh yeah, well, we're just thinking about that thing he's writing about his neck. And, kind of get you in like that. So.
Right. Good point. I'd like to pass it over to Jerome to hit you with another current event. Man,
yeah, this is kind of an update. Yeah, this is kind of an update to a current event I did on, I can't remember what show I talked about it on, but it was about when I went to like a prenatal appointment with, with my black woman, and, she was pregnant. And they were basically saying that there was a marker that showed that my son was, had a chance of having Down syndrome. And the way that the lady came in, I detected it right away that it was like she was trying to sell something to us.
Right.
But of course, my black woman was stressed out over it because this is a professional coming in and, sticking pins into our heads, or trying to. So,
that's his duty.
Right. So, we didn't end up getting the testing done. I just wanted to report that my son is good. He doesn't have Down syndrome. He's healthy. He's no issues there. So,
and you also had a home birth.
Home birth, yeah. So we, our second one. So everything was peace. And, no issues there. But yeah, so the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because if you've been paying attention, there's been a whole lot of things out there in regards to genetic testing and DNA testing and knowing about your DNA before you choose to procreate. Or you can I could go and get tested and they'll basically be able to tell me what I'm going to end up getting as far as diseases go, based on my genetics and stuff like that. So I think people need to be aware of the ramifications of those types of testing. You know what I mean? Because then they can not only make more money off of you, but control you in a sense of like, oh, you shouldn't procreate with this person because they have this, so you guys shouldn't have children. Or, you know what I mean? Or you could even have a situation where you're pregnant. Say if my black woman did get the test and then something showed that my son did have it, we could have
abort your baby.
Exactly. Right. And then that's what they do. So
it's no big deal. Everyone's doing it.
Right.
Everyone's dying too. So
exactly.
Right. And many people forget that, there have been trillions of births since, man and woman came together in holy union. And there was no DNA testing, and there was nothing that would give anyone any idea about the probability that one of their children could be born with birth defects and anything like that. Honestly, most people need to do research on the environment that they're having children in and raising children in, because environmental factors, it affects health. It affects a variety of things. Just the air we breathe, the food that we're eating, if it is truly food, could actually, contribute to brain damage when that child has already been born. So I think we need to spend a lot more time doing that. I mean, when they make a DNA kit that we could buy at a pharmacy, hey, maybe some of us will use them. But until now, just keep in mind that, there have been trillions of births, trillions of children being born without all of these interesting scientific developments.
Right. No doubt. Go ahead, man.
No, I just want to add on. I had another current event, but I'll make it short and sweet because it connects right into this whole thing. So this is how crazy they are with that. Is that there's now some medication that they've been testing that is shown to connect the neural pathways that aren't connected in those who have Down syndrome. So not only are they going to make money from the test,
Right.
they're going to make money for, oh, well, if you don't want to abort your child, you can have your child and we'll just give them this medication to help them, you know. But they may have to take it for the rest of their lives. You know what I mean? So it's big bucks, man.
Oh, man. At which point, you know, that may or not be covered under your Obamacare, your affordable health care plan.
Right. Wow. So, you know, that was actually going to be one of my current events. So,
oh, really? Farming?
Yeah, man. That's okay, man. Main thing is I wanted to share something that came out on March the 18th. It's been widely published. You can just look up, put in a search about the gravitational waves that astrophysicists found. This particular article was published on the WN.com website, and it's about the gravitational waves that rippled out from the Big Bang some 13.8 billion years ago.
Right.
So,
it was 13.8? Okay.
At least this source.
Okay.
Because, you know, and definitely add on, I mean, that's the funny thing about all of these discoveries. You'll find different sets of articles or you know, publications that tell you different time periods. So this one says 13.8 billion years ago. And they used something called the BICEP2, BICEP2, and that is an acronym for Background Imaging of Cosmic Extragalactic Polarization. So basically this apparently confirms Albert Einstein's research about a century ago about the fact that, you know, there were these not only ripples in space, but as it relates to the Big Bang Theory, that there was a split-second development of the universe. And in quoting this, I mean, there's a lot of information here. It says that, quote, and it's these swirly patterns that represent tug of gravitational waves, first predicted in Albert Einstein's theory of general relativity nearly a century ago, that scientists now consider to be the smoking gun for the cosmic inflation theory, which proposes that less than a trillion, this is a hard word to pronounce, trillionth of a second after the Big Bang, the universe expanded by a factor of 100 trillion times, faster than the speed of light, and in barely the blink of an eye. Of course, I'm not a physics expert. However, I think this really does give us some interesting, you know, dynamics about just the destructive nature of the universe and how that produced the universe as we see it today. I know
that's the key word, as we see it today.
As we see it today.
Because, you know, a lot of times people think, well, there wasn't something and then there was.
Right.
There had to have been something there when the so-called Big Bang occurred. You know what I mean?
And I know, Brother Jaquil, you've always been keeping in touch with some of the notable astrophysics. What were some of the things that you had
God, there was actually,
thought about?
there was a guy, and I was trying to look up the article. It's interesting you talked about it. I want to say it was on like Yahoo News that I saw it on, that they proved that they found the spot where the Big Bang came from, and basically this dude, and I forgot his name, I'll find the article, spent like his whole life doing research based on that thing, and so to have all his his science actually confirmed, or at least what they thought to be pretty much confirmed. He was pretty excited for it. I forgot the guy's name, but anyway, he's set to get some kind of award going out for finding that whole point where everything happened from, so they say.
And you know, I failed to mention, pardon me, the team of scientists are from the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. I bet you their phone calls are off the hook right about now.
They watch the guy's Twitter account.
Right. So, more news to follow. You can look at a really interesting documentary. I mentioned it before, How the Universe Works.
Yeah.
It did actually explore the discovery behind the Big Bang Theory. And, again, this was something that I heard in middle school, and it kind of just came and went, just like the greenhouse effect. So, this is the type of science that we're into, considerable discoveries, kind of helps us to broaden our minds about, how all this stuff came into being, how it works, and how we relate to it, because that's what we study, how we relate to those things. So I wanted to pass it over to the guy Jakil to hit you with another current event.
Word. Now this one's kind of ill. It comes from The Guardian, and it's Venezuelans. It's the headline. Venezuelans worry that food ID cards are a thin end of rationing bread. Food ID cards. Yeah. When I went to school, they had lunch tickets.
Right.
But I never had a food ID card. You didn't even, what this food ID card, I can't get over that. Yeah. What this card is supposed to do, it's a new system that they're trying to set up. And so what will happen is under the system, you'll only be able to buy food once a week, and you'll be rationed with a certain amount of food. And if you try to buy any more than that, you'll be halted by the system. Via your food ID card. Food ID card. Yeah, I mean, how do you guys see that? I mean, obviously there's a lot of things going on in Venezuela.
There's two ways I look at it. I mean, like, how much would that help Americans who are, increasingly obese? You know what I mean?
There is a positive aspect.
Right. But, anytime someone infringes on your freedom to, for food, clothing, and shelter, that's something that's, for me, not right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Right. We have EBT cards, and the welfare system feeds quite a few people. I think that it's a reflection of how the world has responded to Venezuela and their fiery president at the time. It just again, it goes back to equality. Are we as a planet, are we really interested in taking care of one another? Regardless of which part of the world we live in.
Mm-hmm.
Because we advocate that we're all family on this planet Earth. Whether you want to say that allegorical, but the point is, are we okay with one group of people having more than others? And then you're talking about government intervening and deciding how much food people should have access to. So of course, I'm very uncomfortable with that. However, the United States has a whole bunch of poor and hungry people, and for the most part, those people don't get the same type of services that other people do.
Right.
So there's always that, equality, that balance.
And that's exactly what I thought of. I was like, okay, so that's what they're popping off in Venezuela. We have a food system that's kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
What if they tried to do something like that, here in North America, where they were like, okay, you can only buy this amount of food for the week, and then you can't get anything else. You also got to look at the social, I think, effects, right, of what happens. So that's to say, and yeah, there are people who do abuse the system, but all things fair, if you're only allowing a certain amount of food because you're like, okay, through science, we think that this is how much food that you should be eating for the people in your family.
Right.
Because that is eventually what's going to need to happen, right? Otherwise, how can you allot it? So then, when they say that, let's say if you want to have someone over your house, a friend, family, well, now you don't have enough food to feed that person.
Right. Hey, man! Make sure you bring something to eat.
I want you to come up for dinner. I'm gonna need you to bring a steak and a potato and something to drink.
Right.
I got some water, but yeah, and some ice.
How many people are coming? You better bring something extra.
Right. So I thought about that too. I was like, man, that could be a problem. And then we saw what happened when they shut down the welfare system. For a day, right? People started rioting, it was going crazy.
Right.
So, I think you're right, God, with your whole analogy, today being the equality day. I really think that there is enough of everything on earth to sustain everyone, right? And I understand that, yeah, if I work harder than the next person or someone works harder than me, then you should get a little bit more, right? Because you're working harder. That's not what equality, right? That's what equality is about, is you get what's your share proportionate to the work that you did to put into it. Right? If I didn't make the cake, I can't demand half the cake or the majority of the cake. Right? Now, if you choose to give me half or the majority, then that's your choice, and I appreciate it, or at least Terry would appreciate it.
Right.
That's how you say it's okay. But you know, it wouldn't be right for me to demand the majority of something that I put in. Now, if I put in some ingredients or half of the ingredients, right, then we can split it. Right? But the equality, I would say, everyone put in their full share. But I think there's totally enough on the planet for everyone to not have to be hungry or ration food out to. And then, you know, the article goes on to mention they'll be keeping track of the things that you buy. And then they try to sweeten the deal by saying, oh, you get even cheaper prices by giving me food. But then you got to think, okay, well, what kind of food are you giving me at a cheaper price? Is it real food or is it GMO food?
I really like to know how that is applicable to people who just go there for a visit. You know, that would be interesting to experience. You know?
Well, you can't eat at the person's house because they're not going to have enough food to feed a random influx of people that they didn't plan on.
Well, you know, I like to thank my brothers for the current events, and we're going to take a brief break, and when we come back, we're going to get into our show about the religious mindset among some 5%ers. Peace. Peace. Welcome back to the Knowledge of Self radio show. My name is Teray.
Peace to rule Allah.
Peace, Jack.
and we're going to get into the first segment of our show. And this is a discussion about, some of the religious things that people do, and they also call themselves 5%ers. So it needs to be stated very clearly and explicitly that 5%ers are not religious. We don't advocate religion. We live a culture, and this is our way of life. And anything else that you may hear or read or view is not right and exactly incorrect. So we want to talk about what religion is and actually how religions are started. So why don't we just bring it around the, rectangular table? What does religion mean? So I wanted to pass it over to my right to Jerul and just bring it on down the line. How does everyone see what religion is and what exactly does it mean?
For me, it just simply means that you're not a critical thinker. It just simply means that you're dealing in belief. And obviously, anytime you believe in anything, it's a little bit easier to do so. As a 5%er, our job is to not believe, but know. And to know anything, it takes time, it takes study, it takes, trial and error, it takes a lot of experience to know. So, like I said, for me, religion is someone who deals with a belief system, which is not the 5%.
No doubt. Definitely. And then just to have some wordplay with it, right? When you look at the word religion, it's people who rely, and then you have legion of them, right? Legion's a group of people. So, like God said, he really summed it up well, It's just someone who's not a critical thinker. When you're relying on anyone else to provide you with information, you're kind of creating the opportunity for that person to mislead you or misguide you. Because if that person's your only source of data, then they can tell you whatever they want to tell you, and you're not going to go check it out for yourself or anywhere else. Then you're under that person's control.
Great. I think that I learned this in the roster circle where the meetings that we would hold. One of the things that was stated is that, we don't advocate writs and rights. So I think most people would tell you that religion in some form, it's where people are following some set of rules. And a lot of times those rules are left to people's interpretation, and then it becomes organized, more people become a part of it, and then it becomes a religion. So for the most part, I'm not saying anything different than my brothers. It's just something other than a culture. And once you lose that book and you're no longer around those group of people, then you can become a critical thinker. But until the meantime, people constantly pump stuff into your mind like fear. And then you begin having a belief system. And that's when the error, more so than the benefit comes in.
Right.
So, go ahead.
So the important part of that, like we said, you definitely need to know, but it's when you start dealing with the belief. And I always argue, I would say that I don't deal with belief, I deal with only things that I know. I may have ideas or whatever about how I think something happened, but I can only go with what I know to be true, right? And when you believe, you don't have to have any factual evidence for that, right? You can there's pink elephants outside. Well, that's what I believe. And now no one can tell me that I'm wrong because I believe it, right? But there are no pink elephants outside. Right. If someone was playing Dumbo outside, in which case I would have been wrong.
And what you just said is, belief systems a lot of times you can associate with schizophrenia. And any psychologist will tell you that, a person that's schizophrenic believes that they're hearing voices. They believe that a person is in the room with them when actually there's no proof that there is. They believe that they fought in a certain world war, 300 years ago, and now they're the reincarnation of that particular soldier. So a lot of times I just now, because of course I didn't have this knowledge several years ago, but now we can begin to delve into the idea of how, belief in anything that cannot be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, scientific method, actually that person may be on the verge of schizophrenia. And I know that's a really strong statement to make, but if you consult any religious advocates, and then you have the opportunity to study schizophrenia, you're going to see there are several things that are very consistent, man. You know what I mean? Take it back to the guy who was bitten by a rattlesnake. The person who was playing with the snakes during his religious service, he was bitten, and his own son pleaded with him to go get medical assistance, and he didn't, because the man said that the day that I go get medical assistance is the day that, whatever he said, I'll stop doing this or something. But he died as a result of that, based on his belief system in a particular part of the Bible.
Right, and that's like the other man who believed that he could walk on water like the Bible says Jesus did, right? And ended up drowning behind it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
if he's not walking water, we can swim.
Right. So, with that being said, I think it's good for us to talk a little bit about are there any benefits of religion, and also what's the difference between a cult, a culture, and a religion. So I want to pass it to Mariah.
I think when it comes to religion, I think a lot of people argue that, well, it teaches people right and wrong and this and that. But for me, having two sons, or having a 2-year-old and seeing him go through his process of development, there wasn't many times where he didn't know what right or wrong was at that young age, and he doesn't have religion. You know what I mean? So he may test the waters to see, or due to knowledge, right? In a form of wisdom, but it's not like he's not doing things because of a certain belief system that was taught to him. You know what I mean? So my point is that I don't think people really need to know through religion what right or wrong is. It's like something that's more innate. You know what I mean? You know not to kill another person. You know what I mean? If you're mentally stable, you know not to do that. You know what I mean? You know that lying isn't a good thing to do, because you know how it make you feel if someone lied to you. So there's certain things that you already know, but people say, well, that's the benefit of religion. But I think we can have that without any religion. You know what I mean?
Right. That's a great point. I wanted to hear, because we're going in.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I definitely agree. But, I will say it can serve a usefulness in the sense that you may have people, for whatever reason, who are incapable or just choose not to do those things for themselves. You know what I mean? And so going to a place on Sunday and giving them money, whatever all that involves, so that sword over their head kind of helps them to remember to be a good person. Right, that's the catalyst. For whatever reason, that person is looking for whatever outside of himself or herself, right? And they found it in this ideal of something else that they can look to then try to reflect back and draw some kind of power or from in hopes to be a better person. Okay, I'm cool with that. At the same time, Dan, you just gotta, I would think at a certain point you gotta go past that. But, it can be useful for organizing. I mean, you look at, there's a lot of churches, and regardless of what the reason is for doing it, they are able to feed, have like, lunch programs or whatever for the community. That's a good byproduct of religion. Yeah. So,
I mean, it's the least they can do. Right. Taking all the community's money anyway.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, I think we should step into the difference between a cult, a culture, and a religion. And I can truly say that a cult is just blind belief, usually in a person. Usually cults have leaders that actually tempt their followers to follow them, and then they develop this belief system with those followers, and the followers participate in it. And of course, it could be classified as religion, but if it's not recognized by all of the major religions, that's when it gets the name cult.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
Right. No, that's an interesting point. Is just because you're a smaller, like who's the people who were in the house who followed that one dude in was it Texas, and they ran the house over or whatever.
Out there in Waco.
Yeah.
With what's the name on his head? You're not talking about Manson, right?
Nah,
that's a shame. We got so many examples. We don't even know what we're talking about.
even with Manson, right? I mean, there's been big religions, Christianity, right? And you can say, look at the Crusades. That was effed up.
Mm-hmm.
What Manson did wasn't nearly as bad as the Crusades, but because he wasn't some big figure or didn't have a lot of money or influence behind him, that dude got, they said that he's crazy. But he essentially told those people to do the same things that they did in the Crusades. Go run out and kill a bunch of people. And do it in this name. I don't see what the difference is other than, money and power behind behind what you're doing.
Right. So, I mean, and wars to this day are religiously motivated too. So, great points here. I think that now we need to get into the whole premise of the show. For people who are, slowly beginning to discover the 5%, it's always been advocated to me by people who really get into the study of the 5% that there has always been a 5%er on the planet for trillions of years. The ones who really try to teach people to show and prove evidence not only of their own existence but just of the world around them, and try to make more sense out of it without, having that type of thinking or critical thinking, as my brother said earlier, corrupted. So I think that we need to step into the series of debates that take place between us as 5%ers. And the thing is, we're not trying to present one view over another, but we are advocating strongly that the 5% is a culture, it's a way of life. And anyone who tells you differently, more than likely, they're not really learning the correct thing. Maybe they've been led astray, or they could just be plain stubborn. I don't know. But for the most part, we want to get into the debate just about the name alone, man. Now, as far as 5%ers, there are three different names that we are or have been referred to as, depending on who you talk to. So in the early days when I heard about the 5% in Los Angeles, they were referred to as 5% Nation of Islam. In modern times, the Nation of Gods and Earths, and during the Father's time, who was the founder of this nation, Allah's 5%. So unfortunately, this becomes a dividing factor between people who refer to themselves as 5%. So what has everybody heard in terms of the names? You know what I'm saying? I mean, some people would ask us, like, it's just like Latino, Hispanic, and Chicano.
Right. What the hell are you?
What the hell are you?
Right.
Well, let me say this first, because I know the God's going to kill it. So I'm going to get my poke in before he shuts it down. No, when I first came around, I heard it called the Nation of Gods and Earths. Now, once I actually got a little deeper into the study, talked to Born, Allah, or Carmel, name a few times people, they'll tell you, Born will tell you straight up, like, I'm not in the Nation of Gods and Earths. I'm a lost 5%. So he kind of just totally disassociates himself from that name in the first place. After being around for a little bit, I kind of thought about it, and really, to be in the Nation of Gods and Earths would kind of to be discriminatory against a certain group of people, right? Because that's inclusive, those titles to certain people. So that means that's not for everyone, but that's not what Allah taught. So
now, who are you referring to when you say that Because if you say nation of gods and earths, who does that exclude?
Obviously, that would exclude the Caucasian man, or, so-called white man. And so that's why I don't go with that. I don't trip if someone says the nation of gods and earth. I might correct them and be like, nah, it kind of depends on what mood I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, personally, I would say Allah's 5% would be a more righteous name. And I know you got something to say about that.
Oh no, you pretty much covered what I was going to say. I just simply look at it like the rationale of, somebody saying nation of gods and earth would be exclusive. I mean, it wouldn't include like a Caucasian man or in that term or in that title.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I've always said 5% because my lessons say 5%. My lessons don't say nation of gods and earth. So
it's simple.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I don't have a problem with nation of gods and earth, but I just say the lessons in that knowledge equality degree pretty much describe just about any type of people. You know what I mean? So,
right. So I think one of the things that I've learned, and it goes into what you just said. Knowledge God of one of the firstborns of Medina. He said the exact same thing my brother just said. He said, nation of gods and earths is not in our lessons. So we're Allah's 5%. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Now, I think one of the bitter debates, and I'm guilty as well as having this debate. And again, we're taking it back to not having quote unquote a belief system in our culture. But there is a debate depending on who you encounter with our supreme mathematics and our supreme alphabet. So I just wanted to say the two main numbers that, wow, it's the gladiator battle if you encounter certain 5%ers. First is whether or not culture or freedom is in our supreme mathematics, and also whether or not power or refinement is in our supreme mathematics. And then we got to take it to the supreme alphabet, because where some people have, for knowledge born, they have self or savior. Others will say, no, there's no self, it's just savior. Some people will say, I got it, self, savior. Again, and I'm not going to overquote the brother, but he would refer to knowledge God. He'll say it's not queen. He'll say it's quarter. So, again, how does everybody see these types of debates that exist within the 5%?
For me, it's simple, man. What differentiates us from religion is understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I'm building with you, and you have something that's different than me,
mm-hmm.
understanding will allow me to see how you see that different degree or different, supreme mathematics or supreme alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? To me, religion comes into play when you deal with separation. Oh, my lessons don't say that.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's not how the Father taught it.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you know? You weren't there. You know what I mean? So for me, the bottom line is, if you can make it walk and talk and it works for you, more power to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to say, oh, yours is wrong and mine is right.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's is right for me, yours is right for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
No doubt. I mean, so I was told by my enlightener, he was like, yo, just so you know, there's going to be some people as you travel with this knowledge who have different things in their mathematics and alphabets than what you have.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, don't get into any long debates about, whatever they have. Can they show and prove it? Does it make sense to you, more importantly?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Right? Like the God said, understanding is going to allow you to see what the best part is. Right? So when people talk about culture freedom,
mm-hmm.
I get it. My mathematics don't have freedom
mm-hmm.
in it. It just says culture.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can I see the freedom aspect of it? True indeed, because once you learn how to live your culture, right, that should be a free thing. Your culture shouldn't be an enslavement kind of thing. It should allow you to get freedom, right? So I can see it, and you know what I'm saying? I'm not mad at it. That's just not how I got it, right? So I mean, I think that's one way just to end the debate. That, you know what I mean? That being said, I just think the reason that caused debate, like God said, is just the religiousness. You know what I'm saying? You can look at the God degree of the 1 to 14, dealing with separation. You know what I mean?
So Christians, Catholics not getting along, and
right, and then the same people.
Yeah, Protestants, Episcopalians.
Right. You have different, Islamic sects who don't get along. But it's like, man, y'all read the same book. How do you not get along?
Right. The understanding's not there.
Yeah, Bruce Lee would say, take what's useful and disregard the rest. Right. So, all right, if freedom doesn't work for you, then kick it to the side. Right. Keep it moving. That's not going to kill you. You know what I mean? As far as how you get down.
Now, if somebody has something and their understanding is not right and exact, and they're causing harm with it, you know what I mean? Right. Causing confusion, that's one thing. But if they're able to make it walk and talk and it's useful to them in their life, how can you get in a debate whether, that's not right? You know what I mean? That's not what I have. That's not how I got it.
Right. That's not how I do it. Because so-and-so told me to do it this way.
Right.
So-and-so told him to do it this way.
Right. So I think that's one good thing that has come out of this discussion, the fact that, 5% are, as far as I know, all over the world, because people travel, people live, remain somewhere else. And then also we live all over the United States. Some people are in Canada. So I think one thing that we can agree on is that the way people get mathematics and alphabets, it depends on who they got it from and where those people got their mathematics and alphabets from. To my knowledge, there's no one who has a set of 120 or supreme mathematics and alphabets that's sitting there saying like, okay, well, I'm just going to wipe this out and write my own take on this, and then I'm going to give that to you to study. Right. Of course, that's suspect. We don't do that. I think what people fail to see, and it's just from my experience, is that if I'm building on something, that's how I got the mathematics and the alphabet. If that's not honored in this particular cipher, I think the people who make you aware of that should just let you know, like, well, we don't build on that here. So how do you see culture? Since we don't build on freedom in this cipher, how do you see culture? And the person should be able to build on that. But to just puff up your chest like my roosters at home and demand that people not utter that there is freedom or refinement or anything else like that in their lessons or alphabets, that's when things spiral out of control, and then the inequality exists.
Yeah. Right, because you think about it, we use the term lineage, right? If you look at that from a genetic standpoint, your genetic lineage is going to be a little bit different than mine. You know what I mean? So am I going to criticize you because your nose looks different than mine? You know what I mean? Or your eyes look different, or your tone of skin is different. It doesn't look like me. You don't look like me, so that means you're not right as that. You know what I mean? That doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So,
now we should be producing free thinkers and not androids.
Right. Great point. Great point. Now let's get into the visible culture, which entails things such as the dress code for the sisters. So if you see any of the women in our lives and any of the women in some of the other brothers' lives that are in the 5%, you're gonna definitely see a rainbow. So I wanted to see what's everybody's take on how the women in a 5%er's life are supposed to dress, or is there a specific dress code that's being advocated, and where did all that come from? Can Beyonce dress the way she dresses and still be considered a 5%er? I'm hypothetically asking that question.
That's not my marinade. I'm not going to touch that one. As far as dress code, though, I'll say this. Me personally, my solar system, my universe, God, is as long as my woman isn't dressing trashy, you know what I mean? And express yourself the way you want to dress.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah, you know, as long as you ain't got your woody woo out and your, you know.
Woody woo.
Piece of my mom. That's a word that she randomly said one day that just kind of stuck.
All right.
So, you know, but as long as you're not flaunting your stuff out all unnecessary, you know, I'm not mad at it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for me, I look at that build degree in 1 to 40, and, you know, it says the Earth's approximately covered on the water, approximately 3/4 of the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't necessarily look at that in terms of physically, but I think they both go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
So, understanding your culture, you know, when you understand your culture, you're simply going to dress and carry yourself a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And if you don't understand your culture, that will be reflected on how you carry yourself and how you dress and things of that nature. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, for women, I think, you know, not saying that you should have to wear a certain thing because that's what our way of life says you're supposed to wear.
Mm-hmm.
It really should come down to your understanding of your culture. And once you understand your culture, you should want to dress in accordance to that culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It shouldn't just be, you're a 5%er now, you have to dress this way.
Right.
It should come from your own understanding. You know what I mean?
Right, because then it reminds me of Afghanistan, where they had the women wearing full burqas, and they were executing women if they didn't submit to that Islamic law. So our Islamic law is to do the right thing. If you're a woman, to do the right thing. If you're a man, do the right thing. If you're a child, within accordance of what's taught within this culture. Right. So,
or you know, go ahead.
I mean, if a woman in my life decides to wear a pair of jeans, and I feel, you know, the jeans look nice, and I don't see anything coming out of the jeans, then, you know, hey, I'm cool. You understand what I'm saying? If she decides to wear a dress, you know, it's already been established, and I tell that to my female students, which they don't wear skirts to school anyway. But anyway, I do give them instruction in terms of, if your skirt is the same length as the bottom of my pockets, the skirt is too short. You know, so you shouldn't wear anything that short. Just any woman, man. I don't care if she's a 5%er or not. Just that, those are just instructions for women, period. If your skirt or your dress is the length of from my waistband down to the bottom of my pockets, it's too short.
Right. Well, you know, there is a time and place for everything. So I don't want to just, you know, in case my phone gets hacked and some secret pictures get out. Right. Like, yo, why was your woman wearing?
We behind closed doors, man.
So there's a time and place for everything. But yeah, no, definitely. Even, you know, and I was just having this conversation with my mom and the other two women in my life who I can influence the way they dress. Mm-hmm. And you know, as far as women wearing jeans, I understand why women wore jeans in that certain period of time or doing that certain work that you're doing, right? Because we're talking about when, in America at least, the men went out to war and the women had to work in those factory jobs, mm-hmm. right? So you're not going to rock your dress in that job because it might get caught in the machine, or I mean, you know what I mean? It's just not. You dress to do what you're going to do, right? A race car driver doesn't show up in his favorite pair of khaki pants and his wife beater like, "Yo, man, this is how I drive." Right. When I'm in the whip, like, nah, right? There's a certain kind of dress attire to do the job that needs to be done, right? Firemen show up with a certain kind of dress attire. That dude doesn't have. You know, his running shoes and some shorts and a t-shirt because it's like, well, it's going to be hot. the fire, right? He has his big coat on. At the same time, I'm going to personally say that I feel women should definitely attempt to be wearing more dresses than they do wear pants, only because it's better for your private parts. In that aspect, you know what I mean? And so as far as the health reasons, I'm going to say it's better if you wear that. Now, if you're rocking a pair of jeans, you might catch my earth in a pair of jeans. Like the guy said, I'm not tripping as long as it's appropriate. You know what I mean? You don't have the butt's not cut out of them or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, we've all seen the jeans where you're like, yeah, you look good in it, but I wouldn't let you walk in those jeans. Right. Those kind of jeans. Yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, man, how you dress is a reflection of what's in your mind. You know what I mean? What's on your mind, how you've been raised, a lot of different things. You know what I mean? So if you're running around half naked, I don't care how many books you've read or how intelligent you may be, that's not what's going to be the precursor, or that's not going to be your foundation. That's not what people are going to look at.
Watch like a duck.
Exactly. Because from a distance you can't tell who is who. You could be, an IQ of, the highest level standing next to a person with the lowest level IQ, but you're dressed the same. You're the same person.
No one's going to tell the difference.
You know what I mean? So I think your reflection is very important.
Reflection. So now we have to get into a couple of things. The dietary habits. Can we just kind of share with the people what are some of the things in the 5% that we've learned not to eat, to stay away from, and also drink?
Well, we all go back to the father's interview, and a lot of us, that's, what we use as a dietary law. But for me, that was in the 1960s. So we got to update things. What's going on nowadays? So if the father was here in the physical now, what would he be telling people not to eat now? Right. We shouldn't just go by what he said back in the 1960s, because it's a different time now.
They wouldn't know he was cell phone.
You know what I mean? So although he spoke of, not eating pork, different shellfish and, various other different things in the interview, I think for me, I try to analyze all the different things that I may eat and see if it's something that's going to be, it's build or destroy. Is it something that's going to build me up, or is it going to be something that destroys me? Because it's going to be one of the two.
Right.
I heard a notable person in the 5% say that the reason why they are vegan is because they'll have a better understanding. They'll see more. Whereas the next statement was, those of you who still eat meat, you're not going to see these things. So, I definitely don't absorb those types of things. However, are there people that we encounter who just say, well, if you truly want to see these lessons for what they are, you can't eat meat? Is there any truth value to that, or is that just personal experience? Because I eat meat.
I have met... It's a big sign.
Yeah, true indeed.
I have talked to a couple people who are like, I teach my students to all be vegan. Personally, I'm gonna say that's your choice. And I think the degree that people reference as far as poison animal eaters, if you're not eating, not all meat is poison, right? So, yeah, we know in the 5% there's certain meat that we won't eat, right? No pig, no tuna over 50 pounds, no bottom feeders, no. But if you have a good piece of Kobe beef, that cow probably gets treated better than you do.
But you wouldn't consider that as poison, though?
How so? If it's giving you, what is it doing to poison you?
When something dies, it goes into a state of decay, right?
It does.
So eating something that's in a state of decay is not poison?
You cook it and prepare it. It's not killing you. It has. There are minerals and proteins and things like that that are contained within food. You're not losing those things.
But can't you get those from a cleaner source?
What's really cleaner than coated beef?
Vegetables?
From where? You can argue farming practices has caused.
Your backyard?
If you're from, where's the soil from in your backyard? Is that soil clean like it used to be from the earth? So technically, everyone would be eating a certain kind of poison, right? Unless you have a patch of ground that it hasn't been tampered with, right? And then you have to think, well, okay, so you have that, but the spraying stuff in the air, which is going to eventually find its way down to your ground. And then it could be poisoned that way. Right? So you have to try to do the best that you can.
And that's the point that I was
you know
making.
what this establishes, right? That we need to invest in a farm. we really want clean meat and vegetables. Because, I mean, what both of the brothers are saying is very valid. However, if you notice, this is not a dividing point between us. You're going to see us on the next show and the next show and the next show, still building here because we understand our lessons. So those of you who advocate understanding your lessons, we're not advocating division because of dietary preferences. Thank you. That's not a dividing point. But you will get your ass kicked if you come among us and you're eating pork and you say you're a 5%. That's a fact. All right. But aside from that, if you're a vegan and you come into our rallies carrying a weapon, how are you better than the pork eater who advocates, well, we're not really into carrying guns. We just go to church every Sunday and we try to teach Jesus' truth. You see, there's a lot of hypocrisy out there, man.
That's
you know
the
what
point.
I mean?
Right.
Yeah, that's a great argument.
Right. What does it go back to? It goes back to right and wrong. I mean, if a person is contributing to crime in the streets or selling dope, and they knowledge 120 lessons, they don't eat pork, they don't eat meat, they beat up their girl, how are they any better than someone who doesn't do those things, goes to church every Sunday, and after church they go eat ham?
Right.
Who's the better person? The person who's doing the right thing.
Right. Or the earth in 3/4.
That's what I was going to say.
Runs around, does this, that, and the third when she's not at the rally, but then when she's there, she's misrighteous.
Right.
And then on the other hand, the one who may not be dressed in 3/4, but lives righteously and adheres to the culture, but just doesn't wear 3/4.
Right.
Who's better? You know what I mean?
Right. Because you guys, this summer, it's going to be a hot ass summer everywhere, and some of the women in your lives, they may knowledge 120. They're going to go to the beach and they're going to say, hey, listen, I'm going to wear a bathing suit underneath what I'm wearing. And maybe, that's going to make you a little uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Are you going to get into a drop-down argument with them? I don't know. It really depends.
And you asked a good question, and I really want to know, too, and I was thinking about it, because I heard a comment that someone said that, okay, well, the Earth aren't allowed to build in God's cipher. And I was like, well, that kind of really sounds inner-wire to me, you know what I mean? As far as how they split the men on this side and the women on this side.
Man, what does that mean? The Earths aren't allowed to build in the God's cipher.
That means that the female should be over here in their own cipher, and the men should be over here.
But from my understanding, Earths can't teach Earths, though.
I've also heard that too.
See what I'm saying? So that's the point of the show. Like for me, it's like, there's certain things that I know that I'll never really know about a woman. So, although I agree that in teaching, you should be teaching someone that you're close to. I get that. If that's someone that's going to have your children and you want to teach her so she teaches your children the right way. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard that if an Earth comes and she doesn't want to deal with any gods in that certain way, she can't go to another earth who made knowledge 120 to be taught.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Now, I don't know if that's an actual fact everywhere, but I've definitely heard that. You know what I mean?
Like you said, God, there's certain things that men are just not going to be able to fully relate to with women, right? And personally, I don't see why, or at least maybe she'd be. I mean, honestly, if my Earth was landing 120 from another Earth, I wouldn't trip like that because I'm still gonna. Ultimately, that's my woman. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna still have my certain things that that's my universe. You know what I mean? It's gonna just go down a certain way. It's just how that is. And I'm not egotistical enough to be like, oh well, no one else can. Hell, she's gonna learn lessons just from life in general. You know what I mean? And that's gonna be other people other than you teaching her things, right? So
I think she'll learn more of a lesson when she could see a Earth who's righteous.
Doing it, that's the model.
Yeah.
Right.
And she's getting it from her versus, hearing it from you and then going outside and hearing the opposite from everyone else. You know what I mean?
And I think in that respect, and the dietary habits and everything, people tend to forget that knowledge equality degree in the 1 through 40 where it says that we teach freedom, justice, and equality. And I think when people think about freedom, they think about dun, 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 they don't understand like the smallest seed of freedom actually involves a sense of trust, especially in regards to a man and a woman. Now, if you're the original man, you're the first person that she's going to get the teaching from. But if she has a sister over here who's had more experience with 120, again, she may want to ask certain questions as far as how does this relate to me as a black woman?
Right.
Are you going to give her the freedom to do that? Or are you going to say, no, ain't no woman supposed to be teaching my earth and, those types of things. Some people would go so far as to argue, and we're going to get some interesting comments about this one, because I've asked this question. Can a brother who's a 5%er, can he coexist with a woman who is a Christian or a Muslim? Can those two people coexist? Or does that woman have to be a person who acknowledges 120 in order for there to be peace and harmony in the household? Now, I'm going to give you the answer, right? That my brother, understanding God, because he wouldn't mind me quoting him. My brother, understanding God, I asked him that question, and he said that as long as, I don't remember, as long as the holes in his head or fits the pegs. I can't remember. It was something in that respect.
Okay.
You know that old saying. But the point is, his response in so many words was yes. A man and a woman can coexist as long as they have that mutual understanding. Right. So, of course, as a 5%er, you would say, nah, you can't ever bring no pork in this house. That should have been an understanding before you even built a relationship with the woman.
Yeah.
However that works. Some of us may be struggling because we came into this when we had marriages firmly established. One day you're going to turn to your black woman and say, now that I came into the knowledge of myself, you can't bring pork into the house. That's something you're going to have to work out. That may take a hell of a long time. Are you going to end your marriage, kick your kids out, kick her out? I mean, how's that going to work?
Right, and this is why, for me, taking religion out of it, using that same, what you just said as an example, taking religion out of that would simply be, did you know that pork does this, that, and the third for your health? Taking an approach scientifically, like, you eat pork, it's going to diminish your health.
Yeah, right.
That takes religion out of it. But if you just say simply, I'm now a 5%er and we don't eat pork, so you can't bring that stuff in our house no more.
Right.
That sounds religious.
Right.
You know what I mean? But why?
Exactly.
Just because I said so.
Right.
That's what we do in our culture. Nah, this should be like, as a teacher, you should say, nah, this is why.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like, even if you look at ancient times and the ancient books that say don't eat pork, it wasn't simply just don't eat pork. It was because it was bad for you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So get to the root of the understanding of why certain things were stated versus just doing it because that's what someone else said to do.
Right. Are we supposed to drink alcohol? Because, you know, I know that some Muslims do drink alcohol and smoke cigarettes, and then some Muslims do not drink alcohol and smoke cigarettes, but we're not Muslims. The same people who advocate you shouldn't eat certain things also drink strong liquor. Should we be smoking weed? You know, I mean, I don't smoke weed, but I know there are some very notable people in this culture that smoke weed, but they don't sell crack. And some of those people that sell crack, they don't smoke weed, nor do they drink. So I mean, you know, It goes back to right and wrong. Should we be drinking? Let's begin with that there. I mean, should we be drinking? Is that a one of those unwritten, unspoken laws?
You know, so I'm gonna say that there isn't. Should you? If we're looking at just health, right? Should you be drinking? Probably not, because it is literally just poison. That being said, you know, if you want to have a drink or two, let's not go too much higher, right? But you want to have a couple of drinks, get your drink on. The thing I'm going to say is you should do the knowledge to what drinking is going to do to you. And then take the precautions to try to clean yourself up or to repair that damage that's going to be done to you. And if you can't do that, then just know you're causing damage to yourself.
Watch our addiction show. That's a really good one. True indeed.
But other than that, man, do what you want to do.
Right.
Really, as long as you're being righteous and don't be running out vaping, killing, and pillaging.
Right.
Unless it's for 24 hours, like the Purge or something. Right. They're coming up with a part 2 of that movie.
Interesting. Speaking of purging, man, keep yourself clean. Another thing, and I think after this one, we should definitely, give you all a minute to marinate on this. When we say that our word is bond, regardless of whom or what, what does that pertain to? Because I first heard that in music decades ago, and now I can truly understand the significance of that. Everyone's guilty for the most part when they say, my word is bond, and then you don't follow through, you fail to deliver. How has that become a cliche as opposed to the oath of seriousness that
you ain't even got to raise your hand. Oh my God, I'm gonna just stay back and let you. You want to get off camera real quick?
Nah, man, it's simple, man. The way I see word is bond is, word is wisdom, right? So you're bond to your wisdom. So it has nothing to. For me, it doesn't just have to do with what you say. Like, I promise I'll do this for you, but it's whether or not you follow through with that promise. That's what you're bond to. Regardless to if you say it or not, or if you do it or not. Whatever you do or don't do, you're bond to that. And that's who you are. Because wisdom is a reflection of who you are. So if you say, I got $5 I could let you borrow, and then come time for me, to get the money or whatever, and then you're like, nah, you can't have that. Okay, you're bond to that action. That's who you are. You know what I mean? So that's how I've always seen word is bond. And when you think about the knowledge agree, you should acknowledge who a person is. You know what I mean? Just because they say they're a 5%er or say they're this or that, and they say, yeah, my word is bond, doesn't mean you just trust that. You look at their wisdom. And that will be a reflection of who they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, true indeed. Yeah, nah, that was on the money. You know what I mean? It's, regardless if you do it or if you don't do it, right? That's what I said. Your word is bond regardless to whom or what.
Mhm.
Right? So no matter as to who you're giving it to or what, right? Whether you say, "Oh, okay, I'm going to work out," and then you don't start working out, I will. That was still your word, and it was bond, and you're bonded to what you said you did, and you didn't do it.
Mhm.
That's never going to leave you. That's always going to be there.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, you know what I mean? Do what you say and say what you do. I think every religious book kind of says that too, right? You can look in the Bible, it says, let your yes be yes and your no be no.
Mhm.
Right? The God say your word is bond regardless of whom or what.
Mhm.
So,
Right. You know, I think in terms of word is bond, you know, men and women, I'll leave the babies out of this, they tend to lie to two people, themselves and someone else. So if you say that your word is bond, the first question you should ask yourself, are you lying to yourself?
right.
Mhm.
Do you really plan on following through? Or are you just saying that to get the person off your back? I would rather a person say, like, listen, it's going to take me a long time to accomplish this. Quite possibly, it may take me the next 2 years. So just wait and give me that amount of time.
Right.
But don't say you're going to do something next week and you don't do it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's the worst.
Right.
Who do men generally lie to? They generally lie to women and children. Those are two people. He said that word is bond of wisdom. So leaving yourself outside of that, you are lying to yourself if you lie to your woman and your child. You know, it goes back to wisdom again. So I think it goes back to this is a new period of time, all BS aside. And this is just a general message, not only to myself, but to anyone who's interested in listening to this show, that we really have to look at what word is bond is. I mean, because if your word is not worth anything, then you're worthless, you know, and you might as well shut up and not say anything. So it's best that we practice that old school rule, which it is said that Allah said, you know, to keep your mouth shut, you know, because until you have something useful to say to someone, don't make promises, don't make oaths that you can't keep. Just be quiet and let what you do speak for you.
Right? What they say, don't write a check your ass can't cash. Huh?
That's that old black law. So on that note, unless my brothers have anything else to say, we're going to take a brief break. Yeah. All right, we'll be right back. Peace.
Peace.
Peace. Welcome back to the Knowledge Yourself Radio Show. My name is Teray.
Peace to rule.
Peace, Jack Hill.
And before we left, we were building about just a lot of the things that have become religious among 5%ers. And I think that we can't be thorough enough. And I think all of your comments are going to determine how often we revisit this point. So this section is titled "I Was Not There," and we definitely have every good purpose and intention for doing these particular type of shows. But one of the things that really eats my brother Jerul is when people say Allah said or the Father said, and they're like 30 years old. It may be a little bit older than that. So I wanted to just kind of give this away to Jerul to kick it off like you would kick off a football game. I mean, right at you. How is it taken when people try to validate their point saying, well, Allah said or the Father said? How do you see that, brother?
You know, like I said, first and foremost, I want to say I love my nation. And, you know, the reason why we chose to do the show is for that reason. You know, and I never want to discredit anything that the Father did. And, you know, the signs that he dropped on those youth are very important because it's still here and we have it. Mm-hmm. But my point is that what differentiates a person in the 5% from saying Allah said when you weren't there from a Christian who says Jesus said? Mm-hmm. What's the difference? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So my point is that you shouldn't have to validate what you say using somebody else. If it's the truth, that should stand on it, you know, its own legs. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And to me, that's really the bottom line of how I see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and I think the big thing is that, like you said, when people try to validate or use something that Allah might have said, or Jesus, or anyone for that matter, right? To try to do some sneaky underhandedness, mm-hmm. right? In some kind of way, to justify some kind of action that they're doing. Like God said, if what you said is what it really is, then that's all you really need to say.
Yeah, you're God. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you're God. So why do you have to validate what you say from somebody else? It's mm-hmm. like, you know, it's like the person who says, well, my doctor said, you know, they're trying to validate their word using somebody who's above them. Right. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you're the supreme being. So
what's above you?
Right. You know what I mean? And what's above you is what you put above you. Mm-hmm. And that comes from you saying that someone else said. You know what I mean? So that means you're probably not too confident in what you're saying.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. You're basing it on what someone else said.
No doubt. I was going to say, and to take a quote from Allah, right? Mm-hmm. He did say that you are God, right? So if you are God, it's not what he said or what they said or anyone said, it's what you say. So, you know, you gotta look at that aspect. If you run around, you call yourself God, then what did you say? Other people may have a point or reference to say something, and that could definitely be taken into consideration, right? But ultimately, it's going to come down to what are you saying? Mm-hmm. I mean, even if you're in a relationship with a woman, and you constantly run your relationship by saying another man said something, mm-hmm. your woman might just go find that other man. Right. Because why deal with the middleman, right? Mm-hmm. You either got to be the man or send them to the man. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like the degree says, you know, person of suitability. Mm-hmm. If you're not that person, then send them to the person who is.
Right. And you know, it goes back into, since this is media, you know, in reference to sources of information, you have your primary sources of information, and then you have a third source of information. So many times we get things from the grapevine. I think one of the things that's commonly read by us is, you know, articles such as The Bomb, And, you know, just in that, it gives us a really interesting background on Allah the Father's history, the firstborns of Mecca, as well as, you know, a lot of different events that have been proven to be true. Allah's first attempted assassination, and everything else that comes out in the article. But
isn't that, from my understanding, the author of that never met the father?
Okay, I'm glad that you made that point.
The author of
The bomb.
The bomb.
From my understanding.
I did talk to another guy who was like, yo, I don't necessarily give people the bomb because it's not really right and exact.
So I would say just listen to the interview. Listen to the interview, take the best part of what he said in the interview, but you have your own mind, you have supreme mathematics, you have supreme alphabet. You have the ability to think for yourself.
Right.
And speaking on the interview, one thing that I was told by our brother Understanding God is that the transcript that's commonly circulating out there of Allah's interview, that there are certain parts of that missing, which is some of the things that the young guys are saying to him in the background.
Okay.
So some of that stuff is edited out. So again, you know, the bomb, the true history of the father, that's a text, if I'm not mistaken, that was passed on to me. You know, we really have to piece these things together, and I'm not gonna stop there. You can look up the FBI files, you know, read that information because they have a different
perspective,
physical born date for Allah. You know, they don't have it. They don't have it February 22nd. You know, so or at least they have the year incorrect. You can look up the FBI files and the information about Farad and Elijah Muhammad. So, you know, I'm not really into reading the Fed's information, but I am interested in comparing that to that, to that, to that, to that, into what this brother said, who actually knew Allah, and trying to piece it together and figure out what best fits into proof and evidence.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just interesting, and I'm just gonna throw this in there. This is a curveball for you people that worship Tupac. I mean, come on, man. You know. Anyway, you should read the information about Biggie Smalls. You know what I mean? Read that FBI file. It's all suspect, and read the one about Tupac. Like all that stuff, man. A lot of times, just within the 5%, is he say and she say.
Right.
There are only a few people, reputable people, in this culture that can truly say that, you know, they were told or taught directly by Allah how it was. And I think it's important for us to not, you know, to seek those people if we want to find out certain details. But the most important thing is this is knowledge itself.
And the bottom line is, if you think of like a father, right? A father has different children. He's going to teach his children differently. So who's to say that the father was teaching one God one thing? If you were there, would he teach you the same exact way? Who knows?
Right.
You know what I mean? He would probably look at you and say, well, he might need something like this, so let me give him this.
Right.
You know what I mean? So just because one person got something from the father a certain way doesn't mean that
That's the way it is.
piece would fit with you 100%. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
So,
Even when my father teacher who passed last year, he would give different people different things, right, to make it work for them, right? And so, you know, it said right that Allah would do very similar things, right? So not everyone started with the 1 to 10, right? Some people got the 1 to 40. You know, he gave to the person as he saw fit what they needed. But like you said, though, more importantly, it's about the knowledge of yourself, right? And what do you say? What do you think based on the research that you've done, right?
And what can you prove? You know, that's really important. I think one of the things that we should address is the idea of some 5%ers dating white women or marrying white women.
interesting to say that.
So I think that's really the hell, you know, a 5% are having a white friend. Let's let's break it down like that. What has everybody been told, or how have people responded to this? What some people consider an adoption. You know what I mean? If you wind up marrying and dating a white woman, or you wind up having a white friend and hanging out with them, how do people see that? You know, and we're saying in reference to our experiences being in love Allah, and it's not to indict any of our brothers, because we're not going to say any names, but we can only tell you what we've seen. And the people that everyone's built with, because I'm not really much of a media dude and reaching out to people across space, but what's the general consensus?
Yeah.
White women.
Yeah.
White friends.
White friends, you know, the father had white friends, obviously, right? That's how we got the building, or the school. And that's what the knowledge equality degree talks about. Otherwise known as civilized people, also Muslims and Muslim sons. You know what I mean? That's anyone who's civilized should be on your team, right? There's a difference between the knowledge degree in the 1 to 10 and the wisdom degree in the 1 to 10, right? One's telling you who you are, the other one is telling you the people who are on that other team. You know what I mean? And so, yeah.
I mean, yeah, for me it's simple, man. It comes back to that word is bond, right? So I grew up with some Caucasian people who word was more bond than some original people that I know. You know what I mean? So I'm supposed to not be friends with the Caucasian people because they're Caucasian, when they got my back more than some of the people who look just like me do. That doesn't make sense.
They got my back against the people who look just like me. Right? Like I'm getting into a fight and I got 2 white dudes with me fighting against my own people.
You know, so like I said, when you get supreme mathematics, you should get rationale. And with rationale, you should be able to look at every instance and say, okay, well, what's the most, you know, I guess, accurate read using supreme mathematics of this instant. Now, how can I draw it up so that it makes the most sense, and that whatever comes out of it is at my best interest, in the interest of my nation and the people. You know what I mean? So, for me, it wouldn't make sense to just go teach all original people who may become a part of the nation, but don't do anything. You know, what's more important, teaching 10 people who don't do anything, or one, say, Caucasian dude who goes and teaches his people, you know, helps a nation in various different ways? Do I just not teach him because he's Caucasian? You know what I mean?
That goes against the lesson. You know what I mean? Even the wisdom degree, the 1 to 14, all human families of the planet Earth. So, like I said, you know, you really gotta make that effort to reach out to the right people. You know what I mean? Not white people, but right, R-I-G-T-S people, right? And just have those kind of people in your cipher. And if you happen to be surrounded by, I don't know, maybe you live in Orange County or something. I'm just trying to think of some place that has a whole lot of white people, and that's all you have around you, and you know what I'm saying? Within those group of people, you're going to find 5, 10, and 85%, right? 5% of those people are going to be cool, 10% of those people are going to be devilish, and you have 85% that's kind of go along and do what people do with no kind of real understanding behind what they're doing. You know what I mean? And so it's your job to establish who's who, and then to work with those people accordingly. That's really what the understanding of parts of the knowledge equality degree is talking about. Finding the people who are like you and working with those people.
I think, of course, in terms of male-female relationships, if someone that, you know, I highly respected, you know, with a 5%er, you just walked in with a white wife and said, "This is my wife." It's not my place to criticize him and tell him he's less of an original man. But what I do advocate is that, first of all, people remember that, Allah brought in the first white 5%er. Okay, and that's the history that is shared. Azrael was a real person, if I'm not mistaken. You did speak with him, so he's a real person. You know what I mean? And we did, pay some honorary respect to him on this show by acknowledging the fact that he had returned to the essence. So in saying that, we're not pro-black or anti-white. That's something that needs to be stated very clearly. However, for those of you who decide to make companionship, we're talking about original men and your 5%ers. The thing that I would say that I don't like is when you will begin to pussyfoot around the history of the European, which was taught on this show. Your duty is to teach. So you're not only supposed to teach our history from the beginning. I'm putting beginning in quotes there. But you are supposed to teach and civilize. You know what I mean? We civilize through our teaching. So you can't just say over dinner, because you're about to get some booty to this woman from this white woman, and you kind of, when she asks you, so, I've heard that you don't like, people, 5%, they don't like white people, and we're like the devil. Can you go, oh, well, just some of us say that, not me. And then you just continue putting food in your mouth, and you don't answer the question because you want some booty. Man, listen, even if someone white comes into a rally, right? If I want to teach about the brutal history of Caucasians that have, been perpetrated on our people, I'm going to teach it. There's no doubt about it. I'm not gonna pull any punches, but I'm not gonna do it to hurt anybody's feeling because it's history.
Right. No, exactly. And that's what I will say as far as building with so-called color man, right, or white man. You don't have to pussyfoot. I like that word around it. But with anything, there is a certain way of doing it, right? It's going to be the most efficient, right? You know what I mean? You don't try to tow something with a 4-cylinder car because that's not the most efficient way to tow something up a hill, right? You're going to want to get a big burly truck, V8, got some more torque behind it. You can pull it up, right? Or the same way, when they say you can catch more bees with honey than you can with vinegar. So it really, I would say, always teach the truth, but your delivery, right, like the builder being the 1 to 40, you need to be swift and changeable in how you, in your wording and how you say things, right, so that you can still get your point across, right? Because, you know what I'm saying, you could come to someone and say, all right, the white man is the devil, and, that's why, nah. Or you can say, well, when you look at history and you've seen what happened over here caused by the white man, what happened over here caused by the white man, now this is why we say that the white man is the devil, because when you look at the actions of the overall people who's considered to be white, they've done da-da-da-da-da-da.
And
that's not making more sense.
And this is how we see devil.
Right.
We don't necessarily look at devil in a spooky term or a religious term, just like we don't necessarily look at God in that same term. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like when you're dealing with people who aren't familiar with us, you have to first and foremost redefine a lot of the language.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And put more of a rational stance on the language to them, so they're not coming from that old way of thought into your way of thought and saying, well, how are you God if you can't make it rain? Or, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, Lil Wayne, he made it rain on his video.
Right.
He was throwing up money. Is that what you mean?
Well, if I'm the devil, where's my pitchfork or something like that? You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Well, I mean, points well said. I think it's just important for you to, talk to as many people that are 5%. You're going to hear a variety of different views, man. And but the bottom line is, Allah was paid a certain amount of money, every week, to my understanding, to keep the peace in Mecca. And a white man paid him that. Now, Was he subservient to that white man? Absolutely not, because that white man referred to him as Allah. So that was, it's a well-documented fact. And maybe some black militant groups have something to say about it, but it doesn't even matter, because the 5%ers are still here, and a lot of those militant groups that fought against Allah and the 5%, they're no longer here. Yeah. At least in the capacity that they were when they first started. And it's no disrespect to those groups. I read all that literature as well, but the reality is, we're not interested in dividing up the earth. You know what I mean? But we do advocate that as 5%ers. We advocate freedom, justice, and equality. And whether you want to take the knowledge equality degree or the 16th lesson in the 1 through 40, literally, symbolically, allegorically, and all those other English terms I don't like to use until Monday through Friday, you may do so. But it still continues to say the same damn thing, whatever you want to say. One of our brothers brought a colored student to the rally. No one had anything to say about it. You know what I mean? To him or otherwise. I mean, I thought it was a really great thing. I personally would like to know what Allah taught Israel. How do you civilize a colored man?
At the end of the day, what really is white, right?
Yeah.
If we're looking at it scientifically, it's very, 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 very small amount of people.
Very small.
What I mean? Mm-hmm. And the majority of the people that you would think white, scientifically, aren't really white. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Indeed.
So it all depends on, how you look at it, right? Mm-hmm. And then whose language you're using. Because if you say white from the context of what the European uses white as, then that's basically subscribing to his way of, categorizing people through race, mm-hmm. Which we know is not really an actual fact or actual scientifically proven structure or system, right?
Right. Yeah.
So,
Great point. I think we have a couple of minutes, so I did want to get into the firstborn in terms of Mecca and Medina. The firstborn that I mentioned to have got this knowledge. When I refer to, or when we say this knowledge, we're referring to supreme mathematics, supreme alphabets, and 120 lessons. We refer to the first 9 people as the firstborn in Harlem, which we refer to as Mecca, as well as the firstborn in Medina. So, what would be everybody's take in terms of is there some sort of disagreement in terms of who the firstborn is and anything else related to that? What does everyone encounter in that discussion?
You might actually live
I wasn't there.
That's what I was going to say.
I was not.
Bottom line, I wasn't there. I don't know how 100% how it went down. I can only read and hear, hear them out from other people that were. Mm-hmm. But from the people that I've built with that were there, they say that Allah never said anything about a first born. Mm. That came after the fact. And then that on top of a brother by the name of, I think his name's Razul now, but at that time was Abika, is said to have, built with Allah, and Allah was taking him through the lessons prior to him teaching any, firstborn Kareem or anyone else. So, like I said, I wasn't there, so I'm not going to say yes or no, but this is just based on what I've come through in my research.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's cool to, give honor to those people who were said to have been part of the first people to get it in any specific area. Mm-hmm. The law has its first 9 born or 8 born. So it's kind of like your lineage, right? It's kind of your way back. Mm-hmm. I get that. In that respect, but outside of that, man, you're the God, right? Or you're the earth. So, were you making born, right? Where your first nine born?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I would think that's more important. Because personally, I'm not the first nine born. You know, I wasn't there to walk with them. So who knows what they were really like? You know what I mean? And what they were really doing.
Mm-hmm.
Good, better, and different. You know, so you really gotta just. Yeah, you give credit to how you got something.
Right.
If you got those people,
You wouldn't have gotten it, right?
I wouldn't have gotten it. None of these brothers would have gotten it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, that being said, it's like, okay, now that you have it, do your thing with it.
Mm-hmm.
You walk and talk.
Right. I think most of us are taught that, you know, Allah passed on the knowledge to Black Messiah. So I think it's important for everyone to confirm from people who were there if that is true or not. So for the most part, I always see the first nine born, you know, in the beginning, I didn't see it this way. So understand that, because this is part of our curriculum. We should be able to tell the person that's giving us lessons who these said students are that first received Allah's teachings in Mecca back in the 1960s. But I think if we look at that symbolically as men and women, we now have to say, who are the first nine people we're going to pass this knowledge on to? Do any of us have nine people that we've passed this knowledge on to that are living it out and that are actually successful in our lives? Of course, it begins with people in our family. However, the mission is to make sure it progresses beyond that and more people are exposed to these lessons because we can only tell you how it's improved our lives. You know what I mean? But for the most part, seek the people who were there. And of course, it's been said that, you know, as time goes on and on and on, that story about Allah and the firstborn in Mecca and the firstborn in Medina, it gets more and more spooky to some degree. You know, I would encourage a lot of people. Again, I said I'm not going to overquote them because I could have quoted them earlier, but again, you know, build with someone like Knowledge God. I mean, because he'll be able to tell you the dates, the day and the month, you know, and if you ask him, the weather too. You know, I've learned some fascinating things about, you know, those times and a lot of background on certain things. However, it's not to the degree that many of you are looking for, where you're sitting down with Walter Cronkite. You know, it's not going to be a build like that. It's just, you got to ask a question and listen. And he'll answer that question. He may pause, he'll answer the question, but then he'll keep building. Because, you know, the lesson is in the build. You know what I mean? It's not just in that one simple answer. Right. You know, which is the thing. So, you know, peace and knowledge, God. Peace to all the true 5%ers. Because the one thing I can say, it's been said to me several times from a whole bunch of people that, you know, the 5%ers are a really small group of people. And there is, unfortunately, a large group of imposters that outnumber the 5%ers. That's what some people are saying. You know, and as time goes on, it seems like the lies get longer and longer and longer. The truth gets kind of thrown out, and the fairy tale gets put in its place. You know, and that's how I see it.
Yeah, that's I think our point of the show is that if we don't stick to using our supreme mathematics, supreme alphabet in our own mind, it's just going to become a religion. Because it's going to be based on what another man said, or my teacher told me, or this person said, as opposed to what you say, what you drew up from your research. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I get it. It's harder to do the knowledge yourself and study and commit that time and effort to things. And it's easy to just repeat what someone else said. But at the end of the day, that's not what
it sounds like.
Exactly.
Right.
That's not our foundation. Our foundation is knowledge, and that means you got to take time to study. Right. You know what I mean? And speaking of which, I wanted to ask one question, pose one question to y'all. Like, how do y'all see teaching over the internet?
So, I'm a piece of divine understanding born of Allah. That dude is basically like my big brother in this. For the simple reason that that's how I actually got connected with the gods out here in Love Allah, Los Angeles. He had a YouTube, a Yahoo group, which I joined part of, and I was kind of building with him, and then we talked on the phone, and he was like, yeah, man, basically, with this knowledge, it goes from mouth to ear, right? So I can share with you things, and then that's where the whole big brother relationship came from. He's like, I can be like your big brother in this, where, you know, I can share things back and forth, and. He goes, but ultimately, you can't just come to my house and have dinner. Like, you know what I mean? I can't just call you and like, yo, come over and have dinner, right? We can't go watch a movie or, you know what I mean? None of those things together because you're too far away. He goes, so you really have to walk and talk with someone who's in your area. Now, that being said, as far as teaching over the internet, I think to a certain degree, you know what I mean? I don't know if you can necessarily give someone 120 over the internet, only because you can't see exactly what it is that they're doing, and vice versa. You know, I think too many times in this culture, people get put off by the, I don't want to say aggression, but you know, the gods ask a lot of questions. They're going to examine you, and then people feel once they're getting examined, they don't want to examine back, right? So the same way that the teacher can't see the student can also see the teacher, right? So I could be sitting down with the Carl's Jr. Western double bacon burger on my plate, quote 120 to you forward and backwards, like, yeah, what's the understanding power degree? Wait, let me tell it to you from the middle to the forward, back from that middle part to this part, and I'm going to quote the whole degree. Like, wow, that's amazing. Like, yeah, whatever. And I'm eating on my bacon burger, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, so how much of a 5% would you be at that point? Or vice versa, you know, your student could be over there doing some kind of wild out stuff. So I really think you need to walk with them. But, you know, there is that point to where it's like, oh, we're in the same area, and maybe I just can't make it to you. And you're trying to qualify for the next set of degrees, and I got you on Skype or something. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Let me hear your degrees. And then maybe I'll email you the next set of things that I want you to cover. But I think as far as like teaching it, you got to be face to face.
Right. Yeah, man. It's like for me, you know, I look at 1960s, 1964 on, right? It was a different time. You know, so you know all that I've researched as it relates to Allah was that he was more transcending in his thought as it relates to the people of that time. They were kind of more rigid in their teaching. So instead of him saying, you have to come here to get taught, I'm going to go out there to you.
Right.
So for me, do I use that example nowadays and say, okay, well, it's a different time. Where are the people at? They're not in the streets like that anymore. They're online. You know? Now, do I sit up online and try to, you know, take somebody through 120? No, I'm not saying that, but I don't think you should be 100% against technology as a means of teaching people certain things about civilization. You know what I mean? So
just to answer your question, I would never give you any lessons through the internet unless it was some other agreement, some other pitfall in our teaching, meaning like if we just couldn't meet and you know you were ready for those lessons, it would just be like any telegram. But as far as me meeting someone online and teaching you 120, I'm not going to do that. I could only discuss with a person if they're learning at that time. They have I hate to use the word certified, but you know they're learning from a real person. You know, hopefully they won't make up some name. I'm learning from Mystic, Unique, Genuine, Allah, whatever name they managed to come up with. I would never engage with a person like that. If you're trying to ask me what my understanding of a lesson is, or what my point on this show was, or, some other information, where can I find a cipher? Those are like open field sort of questions. But as far as me just, all right, well, here's the first 10 lessons, and you live in the Soviet Union, I mean, that may be kind of problematic, man.
Right. Well,
I'm sorry, did I say Soviet Union? I mean Russia.
Yeah. But then again, I was thinking, so let's say some dude is at a place where, like, he will be the first 5%. Do you make that dude travel to come get it? I mean, that's expensive, right? I mean, you got to take into consideration people's finances. Or do you? I don't know. What do you guys think? Would you teach that man? He's like, yo, and you called so and so and so and so, and everyone was like, man, there are no gods out in that wherever part of the world you're at. I mean, or do you try to tell them to drive to the closest cipher? I mean, dude, you got to travel halfway across Africa to get to where the gods is at. How bad you really want it?
Well, I think
people move to go to
some ciphers. Right? Yeah, some ciphers were established by brothers leaving one place where it was centralized to another, or some people in a different state heard about it and they went to where it was centralized. So I mean,
to go get it. If you really want it, you're gonna get it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There are perverts out there, and there are some people who aren't perverts that'll get online, meet a woman, and they'll fly to a different country to get some pussy. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, sorry about that, guy. But I mean, if you really want to learn, you live in a different country, you want to learn this knowledge, wouldn't you fly to that other country? Yeah. I'm not a woman, but I mean, if you want the knowledge, you would come and seek it, right?
Right. I think the truth's going to sell itself. So I think a lot of times as teachers, I don't even really like to use the term teacher. I just look at it as a person who is doing his duty and sharing knowledge.
Right.
We go out and seek people. Mm. And then when you go out and seek, the people that we seek don't necessarily respect it as much as those who come to you. You know what I mean? Mm. So I think,
good point.
We're not Jehovah's Witnesses, and we're not running around knocking on people's doors and stuff like that.
At that time in the morning, God, I'm knocked out most of the time.
So that being said, people should come to us for it. Not on some ego stuff, but like if you really want it, you're gonna come and get it.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, it's like I've come across, like when I first got to mathematics, where I would send out bills, right, through text message to some of the brothers that I would refer to. Some brothers said, yo, I don't bill like that. Cool. They didn't point a gun at me or anything, or the next time they see me, like, man, what are you doing? They just make that very clear. If I send a text message to some brothers that have been in it since the 80s, they're going to call you up. Mm-hmm. What's your question? Right. They're not going to build. But then there are others who they get those builds, you know what I mean? And they'll send it back to me. You know what I mean? Is that diluting what we're teaching? No, it's not diluting. It's just there are no 5%ers where I work. Mm-hmm. So when I'm speaking to people, I'm not building on supreme mathematics. Sometimes, every day, man, you got to build with your brothers one way or another to keep your mind focused on, listen, you know what I mean? This is my culture. This is my nation. Make sure you don't get lost in other people's language, man. Right. You know what I mean? Some people will be like, well, if you firm at 120 and know your lessons, you ain't never knocked off first square. Shut up. You know what the hell I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? If your ass is in solitary confinement and the only person you see every day is a guard opening up a door and putting food in you in there for a long time, yeah, you do need some sort of interaction with someone, to keep your mind focused on, this is the goal.
Right.
Yeah, it's the same thing as like why certain people in the inner city commit crime. It's not so much that they have a certain propensity for that. It's just that that's what's around them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they see every day. So more than likely, they're going to do what they see.
Right.
You know?
Right. No doubt. I mean, even every once in a while, I post mathematics on Facebook for how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Or I see a picture and I have a quote, and I'm like, yeah, that kind of represents today's mathematics. For two reasons. One, you're obviously speaking to your brothers or the people who speak that language. You can communicate with each other, and then also to communicate to people who don't necessarily speak that language, right? But can still understand what you're trying to convey in that point. Right? And I think that's a good way of getting, because then people are going to hit you up like, oh, okay, well, what does that mean? Or what is supreme mathematics? How come yesterday you said wisdom and now today you're saying understanding? What's that about? Right? And so it'll build those kind of bridges so that you can communicate with different people that you might not be able to speak to. But yeah, true indeed. You definitely need to, I think, speak your language, you know what I'm saying, to your people. If not, you could get lost in the sauce.
Yeah, I would like to thank my brothers for, definitely as always, we come together, making this show extra special. We want to go into the read, view, and do. So I was going to give it over to Brother Jerul for the read.
The read is knowledge of self, and there's various books on 5%ers out there. Some good, some bad. But the thing that I don't like about what happens a lot of times in the ciphers is that, say if I'm reading a book by Michael Muhammad Knight, right, about the 5%ers, which is a lot of great information in the book. People will say, I don't read that book, it's by this dude, and he's this, that, and third. But that's like saying I shouldn't read any book based on who wrote the book. It's not necessarily who wrote it, but what's in it. And you should have your own mind to discern and decipher what you can take and use as something useful and what's not. You know what I mean? So I think you can read anything. It's just taking the best part of it. You know what I mean? So you got the 5%ers. You got In the Name of Allah. You got various books. But I think the best books are the brothers who are there, who are actually still here. And I want to say peace to Wise Jamel. I never actually physically met the brother, but I've heard great things about him. He just passed and returned to the essence. So I just want to say peace to him. So these books are being closed every day. So I think it's important that us, as 5%ers, we go to these books and get that knowledge firsthand of people who are actually there. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Peace to that. I would suggest or encourage people to view a YouTube video. It's titled History of the Father Part 1. I can't advocate whether it's true or not, but I know that the God in that, he was sitting in a law school and sharing that narrative with the people who were present. So, I just put that out there. Just view it for yourself and then continue to do research, especially when certain names are mentioned. Seek those people out if they're still with us, or, seek people that knew them very closely. So what about the view? The do, brother?
What does it do? We want you to use your own mind to draw up your lessons based on what you think, not what another man told you. And you just, use your own head and apply your own knowledge and wisdom. Come forth with your own understanding.
Whether that's your lessons or anything else, man, life in general, don't go to the doctor and just take what he says as the gospel. Take the information he shares with you, do your own research, and determine whether or not it's right and exact for you. You know what I mean?
Peace to that. So, of course, before we leave the Knowledge Self Radio Show, I'm going to give it over to the God Jakil to give you the last word.
Knowledge Self Radio. You don't have to go to knowledge. You don't have to go to college to do the knowledge.
Peace.